It was supposed to be just another ordinary evening. After a long week of juggling work, errands, and the endless responsibilities of being a single father, Daniel promised his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, that they would go out for dinner. Nothing fancy, just a small family-style diner on the corner that served the kind of food Lily loved. Pancakes for dinner, chocolate milk, and fries she could dip into everything. The diner was softly lit, cozy, and filled with the comforting hum of people talking and clinking glasses. The smell of fresh coffee and sizzling burgers floated in the air. For Daniel, this place was a small escape, a quiet corner of normalcy in a life that often felt like chaos. They sat in their usual booth by the window. The neon sign outside buzzed faintly, casting a soft red glow across their table. Lily, all smiles, was telling her father about her school project, something about building a paper volcano that would actually erupt with baking soda and vinegar. Daniel smiled and nodded, watching her animated gestures. For a few minutes, he felt at peace. Then their waitress approached. She looked young, maybe mid-20s, wearing the standard uniform, a faded red apron, a white shirt slightly wrinkled from a long shift, and her name tag that read, Maya. Her smile was polite, almost too polite, the kind that hides exhaustion. "Hi there, what can I get you folks tonight?" she asked, her voice light but distant. Daniel noticed it right away, the first sign. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the notepad. At first, he thought she was just tired. But as she took their order, her eyes flicked repeatedly toward the counter where a group of men were sitting. They were loud, laughing too much, their tone just on the edge of something cruel. Lily ordered her usual, pancakes with extra syrup and chocolate milk, and Daniel asked for coffee and a burger. Maya wrote it down quickly, thanked them, and hurried off, her shoulders tense. Daniel watched her for a moment, something uneasy stirring in his chest. While Lily talked about her science fair, Daniel kept catching glimpses of Maya moving between tables. She smiled at other customers, but each time she passed by that group of men, her whole body seemed to tighten. They were older, maybe late 30s, all in construction uniforms, laughing loudly, nudging each other, whispering when she passed. The second sign came a few minutes later. One of the men reached out and touched her wrist when she brought them refills. It was quick, but Daniel saw the way she froze, just for a second, and then forced another smile before walking away. He could see her trying to shake it off, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, pretending nothing had happened. Daniel's jaw tightened. He'd seen this before. Years ago, when his late wife worked in retail, he'd witnessed the same kind of harassment, the same fake smiles, the same helplessness. He wanted to believe maybe it was nothing, that maybe he was misreading it. But deep down, he knew better. The third sign came when Maya accidentally spilled water on one of the men's shirts. He jumped up, pretending to be angry, but Daniel could tell from his grin that he was enjoying her panic. She stammered out an apology, trying to dab the water with a napkin, and the man said something low, something that made his friends laugh. Daniel couldn't hear the words, but he could see the humiliation on her face. Lily noticed too. "Daddy," she whispered, "why are those men laughing at her?" Daniel sighed softly. "Sometimes," he said, choosing his words carefully, "people think it's okay to be mean when they know the other person can't fight back." Lily frowned. "That's not nice." "No," he said, watching Maya retreat to the kitchen, "it's not." The fourth sign was subtle but undeniable. Maya's smile began to fade entirely. She stopped greeting tables with warmth and moved mechanically through her tasks. Her eyes darted constantly toward the manager, a short, bald man who seemed more interested in the register than what was happening around him. Daniel caught the way she tried to get his attention once, maybe to say something, but he dismissed her with a wave. She was alone in this. Daniel felt his anger rising. He'd promised himself never to get involved in strangers' problems. Life had taught him that doing so often backfired. But something about Maya reminded him of his wife, the same quiet resilience, the same way she'd pretend everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. Then came the fifth and final sign. One of the men, the one with the spilled drink, got up and followed Maya toward the back hallway where the restrooms and the supply closet were. Daniel's gut clenched. He waited for a few seconds, hoping maybe he was wrong, that the man was just heading to the restroom. But when Maya didn't reappear, And when Daniel heard faint voices coming from the hall, one sharp, one nervous, he couldn't sit still anymore. "Stay here, sweetheart," he said to Lily. "Where are you going?" "Just to check something," he said, trying to keep his tone calm. Lily nodded, trusting him completely. Daniel stood and walked toward the hallway, his steps slow but deliberate. The laughter from the men's table grew quieter behind him, replaced by the low hum of the kitchen. He turned the corner and saw them. The man had cornered Maya near the supply door. She looked terrified, her back pressed against the wall, clutching a tray to her chest. The man was leaning close, saying something Daniel couldn't hear. "Hey," Daniel said, his voice steady but cold. The man turned, surprised. "What's your problem, buddy?" "My problem," Daniel said, stepping closer, "is that you don't seem to understand the word no." Maya's eyes widened in relief. "It's okay," she whispered, but her voice trembled. "No, it's not," Daniel replied without looking at her. The man laughed, but there was uncertainty in it now. "Relax, man, we're just talking." Daniel took another step forward, close enough now that the man could see he wasn't bluffing. "You call that talking? Because from here, it looks like you're making her scared." For a moment, neither moved. The air was thick, tense. Then the man scoffed, muttered something under his breath, and brushed past Daniel, heading back to his table. Daniel stood there, waiting until the man was gone, before turning to Maya. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She nodded shakily. "Yes, thank you. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," he said softly. "No one deserves that." She swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "I didn't want to make a scene. He's a regular. The manager doesn't care." Daniel frowned. "He should care." Maya forced a small smile. "Thank you, really. You should go back to your daughter." Daniel hesitated. "If he bothers you again, I'm calling the police." She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Okay." He returned to the table, his pulse still racing. Lily looked up at him, concern in her eyes. "Is she okay?" "Yes," he said softly, sitting down. "She will be." They finished their meal quietly. The men at the counter avoided looking in Daniel's direction now. When it came time to pay, Maya came over, her smile genuine this time, though her hands still shook. "I'm sorry about what happened," she said. "And, thank you again." Daniel shook his head. "Don't apologize. Just take care of yourself, okay?" She nodded, her eyes glistening. "You're a good man." As Daniel and Lily stepped out into the cool night air, he couldn't shake the feeling that the world had too many bystanders and not enough people willing to act. He looked down at Lily, who was holding his hand tightly. "Daddy," she said softly, "you were brave." He smiled faintly. "I just did what anyone should do." "But not everyone does," she replied. That hit him harder than he expected. Out of the mouths of children, sometimes came the purest truths. A week later, Daniel went back to the diner. He didn't tell Lily why, he just said he wanted pancakes too. When they arrived, Maya wasn't there. A new waitress served them instead. Daniel asked casually where Maya had gone. "She quit," the new waitress said. "Something about finding a better job. I think she got hired at that cafe near the park." Daniel smiled, genuinely relieved. Good for her. As he watched Lily draw smiley faces in syrup on her pancakes, he realized that sometimes, standing up for someone wasn't about grand gestures or heroics. It was about noticing the signs others ignored. The tremor in a hand, the forced smile, the silence that screamed louder than words. In a world that often looked the other way, Daniel had simply chosen not to. And in that small act, he'd shown his daughter, and himself, that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was the quiet decision to do what's right, even when no one else does. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him sleepily and said, "Daddy, I think the world needs more people like you." Daniel smiled, brushing her hair from her face. "No, sweetheart," he whispered. "The world just needs more people who care." Outside, the night was calm. Somewhere, Maya was probably wiping down tables in a new cafe, free from fear, maybe even smiling for real this time. And Daniel, a single dad who only wanted to give his daughter a quiet dinner, had unknowingly changed someone's story. Sometimes, heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes, they just notice what others don't, and refuse to stay silent.